Good afternoon. I call this meeting of on Human Services Finance Committee to order. Members, we have a quorum present. I'd like to begin with the approval of 4 minutes of January 31st, 2023. Representative Cotizo-Otun, do you want to move the approval for the minutes for 2023?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
The minutes for January 31st, 2023 have been moved by Representative Cotizo-Otun. Any discussions? See none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? See none, the minutes for January 31, 2023 are now approved. Members, we do have 3 bills today. And the first bill that we have is House File 568 with Chair Freiberg. As he is coming to the testifiers table, I'd like to move House File 568 be laid over for possible inclusion. Chair Freiberg, please proceed and introduce your bill before the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Glad to be here. So before you today is House File 568, a bill that provides for rate adjustment for intermediate care facilities, or ICFs, for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities across the state. There are 131 licensed ICFs in Minnesota supporting approximately 900 individuals. The people receiving services in an ICF often have the highest level of medical support needs outside of a nursing home, and these settings are a necessary part of the services needed to support people with disabilities. For many people living in ICFs, it has been the only home they have known for decades. ICF rates were set back in the early 2000s, and except for a couple of small adjustments over the last 20 years, the rates have remained stagnant. The bill in front of you would establish a new rate floor for ICF services and provide for a $50 a day increase. I know this committee hears every day about the workforce challenges facing many caring professions. ICF services are no different, with many providers reporting 30 to 40% vacancy rates among their direct support professional positions. Investing in these services and providing needed resources for providers is critical in supporting the services available to people with disabilities. Here to provide more detailed information on the components of the bill is Sarah Grafstrom from ARM, and Tom Gillespie and Rod Carlson from Living Well Disability Services to highlight the need for these investments. We'll look forward to questions from the committee members, and happy to turn it over to my testifiers.
Thank you so much, Chair Freiberg. Ms. Grafstrom, welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. For the record, my name is Sarah Grafstrom. I am the Director of State and Federal Policy with ARM. Thank you for this opportunity to present House File 568, which would provide daily rate increases for the 131 ICFs across the state. As Representative Freiberg stated, ICF services are experiencing the same workforce crisis that we are seeing across the caring professions. In ARM's most recent industry survey, our members reported an average vacancy rate of 30% for the direct support professional positions, with some reporting as high as 40%. Our members reported a turnover rate of nearly 45%, with 2/3 of DSPs leaving within, or 2/3 of DSPs that leave doing so within the first year of employment. These striking statistics are in no doubt due to the low wages our providers can pay, with an average wage of just over $15 an hour. ICF reimbursement rates are not part of the disability waiver rate system. Rates for ICF services were set in the early 2000s and require legislative action for any kind of adjustment or increase. Over the years, rates have remained mainly stagnant, as Representative Freiberg stated, with the most recent adjustment being approved by the legislature in 2021 at 5%, and prior to that, rates had not been increased since 2014. It is important to note that while rates for ICFs are not part of the DWRS, most ICF providers also provide waiver services. This results in staff working in both ICF and waiver homes, and when rates are increased through the DWRS and providers can provide wage increases for their staff, they do so across the board. This results in a funding gap for their ICF services. The legislation in front of you today would provide critical funding for providers to recruit and retain staff through much needed wage increases. House File 568 proposes a $50 a day daily operating payment increase and creates a new rate floor of $300 a day for Class A, which are homes that are defined as supporting individuals who are ambulatory or mobile and can take action for self-preservation under emergency conditions, and $400 a day for Class B, which are homes that support individuals not capable of taking appropriate action for self-preservation under emergency conditions. The bill directs the commissioner to first increase payment rates of $50. After that increase, ICFs that are still below the new rate floor would have their rates brought up to the floor. Approximately 18 Class A ICFs and 66 Class B ICFs would be impacted by the rate floor. The remaining 47 ICFs would be above the floor and only access the rate increase. With that, I'm happy to turn it over to Tom Gillespie, Tom, and Rod Carlson from Living Well Disability Services to talk about the real-world critical impact, and happy to answer any questions.
Welcome, Mr. Gillespie. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee. Can everyone hear me okay? Yes. Good. My name is Tom Gillespie. I'm the president and CEO of Living Well Disability Services, and I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to speak with you all today about House File 568. Living Well Disability Services has been in business for 50 years. We're actually just coming to the end of celebrating our 50th anniversary. It's important to note that we were started by a group of families who took exception with the lack of options for their children who had disabilities 50 years ago. Essentially, they were told by medical providers at the time, best practice is to warehouse your children with disabilities on the fringes of society or take them home with a lack of support, with a lack of accessibility in the community. None of that existed at the time. So warehouse your kids on the fringes of society or care for them yourselves. They took exception with that, as I assume all of you would as well. And so they took it upon themselves to create something that kept families and friends and, most importantly, community in the lives of their children. And so they created a home in West St. Paul, and that's still kind of the heart of our services today. We've grown to serve 300 people with disabilities in 37 group homes across the metro, so we're not just in that area anymore. And you know, we have several peer providers that are very much like us. I think that we should all, and when I say we, it's not just providers, it's everybody in this room, up in the rafters or at the tables here. We should be proud as a society that we've gone from, within the span of one lifetime, warehousing people with disabilities to serving them in their communities. We should all take pride in that. We all have a hand in it. But we should also be very conscious of the fact that that is very much at risk. And bills like House File 568 are methods to keep that from happening. Essentially, in recent years, not just COVID related, but prior to COVID, the fight has worsened, and really society has lost ground in that progress. We've not only plateaued, we are stepping back. We've seen things like an expansion of the ability to have more than 4 people in a home. We've seen regression in these areas, and we're starting to see larger service facilities sort of become more normal, at least more possible. At the heart of this regression is the fact that people can no longer afford to be caregivers. That's just it's a fact. With an industry average starting wage of about $16 and a legislated reimbursement that does not even support that, providers like Living Well are seeing employees leave their work despite loving what they do and having done it for decades. And as they leave, they're taking years of experience, compassion, and most importantly, close relationships with the people they serve with them. And let me be clear, they're not doing it because they want to. They're doing it because they can no longer afford to do it. Despite working 2 other jobs and going to college like many of our employees do, we're one of many interests in their lives. They're leaving because they have to. As they leave, providers like Living Well and others basically have 2 options: close beds, shut down homes, take away options for people. Hundreds of beds have closed. That's one option. The other option is providers can choose to lose money and hope for your support. Living Well has taken the latter, and as a result, just in the last year, just in 2022, we've spent over $2 million on overtime and temp services. that don't have caps in their reimbursement the way that we do. So they're able to charge hugely inflated wages, $45 an hour when we're paid $15. But we want to maintain those relationships and those services. We don't want to close homes. We don't want to force people out of their homes. So as a result, we'll spend $2 million, well, we did spend $2 million in 2022 to preserve those relationships in hope that we will have your support this year and going forward. Short of that, providers like Living Well and others, we can't sustain that, right? I mean, we can't lose $2 million year over year. So we're all, as an industry, holding our breath to see what this group does and to see what support comes from the legislator this year. This has really brought our organization and many like us to the brink, and we're holding our breath. Failure to act on behalf of people with disabilities with support for bills like 568 will further create reductions in staffing. People will continue to leave this line of work. That reduction in staffing will continue to force closures as providers can't afford to keep beds open. And saddest of all, that will reduce hope and choice for people with disabilities. We all in this room have the ability to have hope and to have choice in our lives. Of course, we're constrained by certain factors, but we're recognized by society and we have choice and we have portability. Many of our folks don't. And it requires an act of legislation to recognize them and just preserve that hope and choice for them. So please take action and help us do that. To further talk about the impact on people with disabilities and kind of bring more of a personal focus to it, our Chief Operating Officer, Rod Carlson, will follow me. Thank you all for your time today and for your effort.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gillespie, for your testimony. The next person on the list is Mr. Rod Carlson. Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself and proceed with your testimony.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. For the record, my name is Rod Carlson, and I'm Chief Operating Officer of Living Well Disability Services. My major responsibility at Living Well is the oversight and provision of quality services leading to people's best possible lives. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about House File 568 and the help it would provide to people we support that live at Living Well Disability Services. Little background, we serve 105 people across 16 ICF homes in 12 different communities throughout the greater metropolitan area. Most of these homes opened in the late 1970s through the mid-80s as the result of the closure of state hospitals. Please note that I said homes. These houses are homes to 105 people and hundreds of family members that are associated with those people. For many with significant needs, this home might be the only one that they've ever known. The only time they've ever had the opportunities to choose the color on their walls, have their own bedrooms so they're not sharing with multiple people. The only place where they've had choices about what they eat and when they eat. In many cases, maybe the only safe place that they've had to ever live. And, a place where they've had the opportunity to be active members of their communities, things that the rest of us take for granted. The ICF homes that Living Well supports, that we support, have an average of 6 people. More than 50% of those people are on the plus side of 50 years of age. Many have significant developmental and physical needs, and more than 50% also are diagnosed with mental health issues. Many of these people have retired siblings or parents, sometimes in their 70s, 80s, and even 90s. Many positive changes have occurred for the people who we serve. One is that they are living longer and healthier lives. The life expectancy for people with disabilities has nearly doubled in the last 35 to 40 years. Most people we serve can expect to live nearly as long as lives as the rest of us. While remarkable, this good news presents challenges. Rates established in the 1970s and 80s with periodic and unreliable increases no longer come close to meeting the needs of the people as they live longer, fuller lives. Along with all of the good comes increased medical needs, more nursing needs, the need to modify environments to meet increasing accessibility challenges, things like lifts and elevators, ceiling track systems, accessible vehicles, all of which are expected to come out of daily rates that were established decades ago, rates that no longer support the increasing needs of those people. Rates, I would add, that don't even with the requested increases, are still measurably less than daily nursing home rates. The final thing I want to add is the most important thing. As Tom and others said and will say, We need this bill passed so we can afford to pay our workforce a livable wage, to be able to attract and retain people. It's disheartening and frankly disgusting that people who take care of the most vulnerable among us make less than people who work at fast food locations. No offense meant to people who work at Taco Bell, but now is the time, and it's actually long overdue, to support the most vulnerable among us. I implore you to support HF 568 and support the daily increases and support the new rate floors. Literally, thousands of wonderful and incredible people are depending on us right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carlson, for your testimony. Appreciate it. Just wanted to ask if there's anyone in the public who wants to testify on this bill. See no one. Member discussions. Representative Quam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I noticed there are no deleted or deletions listed in the bill. There are just additions. And I'm curious, I'm not used to seeing verbiage that says increase by $50 and not seeing all the areas that relates to. And I'm just don't understand why, if you're increasing it by $50 and there's a rate, you just don't show what the new rate is and say increase to 300, or I see below it's got 300 and 400. So I'm trying to get some clarity on the specifics of interaction with current statute.
Chair Freiberg, I think we can go to the House Research. Mr.
Yeah,
Mann.
this sounds like a question for House Research. Thank you.
Mr. Chair and Representative Quam, my understanding is that each facility has a different rate. They're not all the same rate.
Representative Quam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And that's what I was assuming, but it'd be good for the committee, if we're going to pass something, to have a table of the ranges that these are affecting and better understand. And then the other thing of where now, I'm assuming these are the first times there have been floors introduced, the 300 and 400. Is that a correct statement?
Representative Quam, I'll go to Ms. Grafstrom to respond to that question. If you can also respond to the first one.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Noor, Representative Quam. There is a wide range of rates for both Class A and Class B. I'm happy to provide you each of those if that's what you would like. I know for Class A, they range from the lowest at $119.65 all the way up to the highest rate for a Class A at $358.36. For Class B, the lowest rate right now is $148.10, and it ranges all the way up to the highest rate of $500.43. And again, these rates were set back in the early 2000s based on some data that was collected from the previous year. So it's really kind of a moment in time for these homes that they've now had to kind of live with over the last 20 years.
Final follow-up?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's just that as we go through these, having that back information included with the bills is not just informative. It helps us to more fully understand, the current situations. So I hope in the future, because I don't see a fiscal note. That's not that unusual, and we're not voting on it. But without any of that information, I think it's difficult to grasp the situation.
Thank you, Representative Quam. If you have a chance, I think it's listed on DHS website. Hopefully, we can get that copy to the members. And that explains most of the data and the information. Chair Fisher.
Thank you, Chair Noor. And one of the things that I want to get a little bit of an understanding on is in this area here of the intermediate care facilities, do we currently have, I know that in the long-term care, there was things in the current forecast that were already figured in for their increases. So am I correct to understand that in this area, because we've got this set by standard, by statute, that there is no current increase of any kind, even in the current forecast? Is that correct?
Ms. Grafstrom.
Chair Noor and Representative Fisher, that's correct. The last legislatively approved increase was in 2021. It went into effect 2022 at 5%, but there's nothing that increases the rates beyond that.
Chair Fisher.
Thank you, Chair Nor. Is this an area where we should be looking at having some kind of, and I don't know if a rate study has already been asked for in this area or not. I know in some other areas, they've been doing rate studies to take a look, what are the figures out there and trying to get it moved more into a forecasted model. Is there anything like that being done in this sector?
I think we have the department. Ms. Graham, if you wanted to respond to that.
I can,
Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Christy Graham with the Department of Human Services. We have done some rate studies in the past on ICFDD, and we also get cost reporting from all of the ICFDD facilities because they used to have cost-based rates. So we've done our own analysis at the department over the interim, and we've actually looked at what those rates should be, and we have a proposal in the governor's budget to do something similar to what this bill is doing, but it also includes inflationary updates, which is something that we would support adding to this bill.
Okay, I
Chair
think,
Fisher.
thank you, Chair. No, okay, that helps address some of the questions I had there. The other one is when I hear the range and for each level, how is that determined where an entity gets reimbursed in that range? Is it based on acuity, or how does that all get figured out?
Ms. Graham.
Do you want to-
Or is it,
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I mean, it's my understanding those are historical rates that were they were frozen in time when the legislature there were some deficits, and they just froze those rates quite a while ago, and they've just been sitting in the same place. Because they were cost-based rates, they were frozen at the place where their costs were, and so that's where they are. And then there's certain, I think, increases that have happened by statute, and then some settings get variable rates depending on if people in those settings have greater support needs that would warrant a higher rate.
Chair Fisher.
Thank you. And thank you, Chair Nor. And so what I'm hearing is there's some flexibility built in depending as to what the needs of the individual are, so that as they need extra services and they're able to get some extra dollars to come in to help that. I know it doesn't solve the bigger problem that we have to get to, but I just want to make sure I had an understanding of why there was that different level in terms of the rates. So thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Chair Nor.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Lead New Brindley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think my question would be for Ms. Grafstrom. Do you have an idea, I mean, again, to those existing rates, and it sounds like the range was somewhere over $100 per facility to somewhere over $500 for a facility, which is a pretty significant disparity. So it seems like that $50 an hour would have a significant impact on a facility that is a little over $100, less of an impact on a facility that is over $500. So can you talk to us a little bit about, clearly, I mean, it seems like the conversation that we have over and over again is really the workforce issue, and this extra funding will largely be so that we can support workforce. Do we have an idea of what this will do for helping to support that hourly rate for employees? And do we think this will get us to an hourly wage that will help to actually sustain those employees? Any idea what that number might be?
Ms. Grafstrom. And also, can you also inform this committee who qualifies for ICFDD?
I'm going to potentially, yes, Chair Nor and Representative New Brindley, potentially phone a friend on the second question I'll have Mr. Carlson come down. As far as the range, yes, it would impact the different homes differently. I think on the low end, it would be a 10% adjustment. On the high end, on the very low end, those homes that have the very low rates, it would result in about a 35% adjustment. As far as where we can get our staff wages, I would just say lots of our providers provide both waiver services and ICF services. So it's really a package deal of needing to increase our waiver rates and our ICF rates so we can be bringing our wages up to be competitive with other industries. And so this hopefully will help to raise those wages to a point where we can be recruiting and retaining. I don't have an exact number of how this would impact, just knowing that it's kind of more of a holistic business where they have the array of services that they provide, and this would be an important piece in helping the funding to raise wages for all staff. But it is just kind of we need to do the full array of services as we're looking to raise wages for all direct support professionals.
Lead New Brindley? Mr. Carlson, if you wanted to take the second question, and then I have Chair Pryor.
Can you ask again?
So the question is, who qualifies for the ICFDD?
ICF services are people who, for some reason or other, may not have a waiver, or they have typically just a raw criteria is an IQ under 70, and basically free from communicable diseases, and they need to be in Minnesota, a resident of Minnesota for at least 30 days. So the criteria is pretty broad.
Thank you. Chair Pryor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this was exactly the question that I was having. And then to ask a follow-up, if I may, what is it about this, this population and this group of people that we're serving in these settings? Is it that they do not have waivers?
Yes,
Mr. Carlson.
most of them do not have waivers. And they, for some reason, whatever case, or they chose this kind of service, or this was a service that was available to them, or the best fit. Could be a variety of reasons.
Okay.
Chair Pryor.
And on a different track then, and this is actually to follow up on what Representative New Brindley was talking about, Lead New Brindley, is with the flat rate of the $50 a day, and this is maybe I'm wrong in how I'm thinking about that, and I hope I can be corrected. And so that's why I asked the question is, it seems like if you have that higher rate, it's because that particular individual needs more services, and I make the conclusion if you need more services, it's critical that you have them. So a lack of staffing would be, a higher priority in that kind of setting, and that we're not, but that the way this is being structured, we're not maybe necessarily getting higher wages to the people that are serving those most critically in need. And, maybe that's the wrong analysis completely, and just, would want to be set straight. Thank you.
The only
Mr.
thing that
Carlson.
thank you. The only thing that I can speak to is Living Well Disability Services in my years with our organization. When those rates were set, and they were higher or lower, it was a moment in time. We have homes on the lower end of our rate spectrum with people who have far higher needs, or not far higher, but higher needs than the higher rate people. So it really isn't something to be, for us anyway, I wouldn't look at it and say, okay, our lower rate homes, the people necessarily have less needs. It was when it was established, people's needs have changed, other people have moved in over the years, their needs could be higher. So that range, at least at Living Well, is not as dramatic as it might sound. We may very well have somebody in a higher rate home that has very similar needs people to the lower rate homes.
Chair Pryor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, because that exactly answers my question, and I really appreciate the clarification.
Lead New Brindley. You wanted to follow up?
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the latitude. But that brings up a really interesting question. I mean, what an odd situation that regardless of the needs of your clients, you're getting these rates based on random numbers that were chosen, it sounds like decades ago. Have we done an evaluation on that rate structure generally and worked towards a, frankly, more logical system for that?
Mr. Carlson.
I can't speak to that, how that's been done over time. I'm, again, really only more familiar with our organization.
Sure.
Ms. Grafstrom.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Knorr, Representative Brindley. I think what Ms. Grom referred to is that the department does collect cost data. They do collect information from ICF providers. There is a proposal that they are working on that looks at how can we create kind of similar to the DWRS and ICF rate methodology that makes sense. I think we're very interested in talking that through and figuring out how something similar can move forward, but also just wanting to make sure that all services are supported right now as well. So,
Thank you so much. Representative Zeleznyka.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Ms. Grafstrom, for being here. My question is on the rate. If you could describe to the committee here, what the age bracket tends to be for the people you serve? And then is there a reason for discharge? You know, what's the level of care you can handle there? Are they able to stay to end of life? Are they, you know, I'm looking at the $500 rate and I'm wondering, what does that look like? Because I'm used to diagnostic, you know, situations, care levels. Do they need assisted 1, assisted 2? What is a care plan looking? So I'm just wondering if you could define that a little bit, the difference between Class A and Class B, and then when can they not be there? And if you could just help the committee understand it, because I think there's a lot of spokes in this healthcare wheel and it gets confusing. If you could help us, that would be great.
Ms.
Thanks.
Grafstrom.
Thank you, Chair Noor and Representative Zeleznikar. I will do my best.
Okay, yeah.
I am certainly not an expert on all things ICF services, but our members have done a wonderful job in educating me over the years. So my understanding from what our folks have shared with me is, you know, ICF services typically do support people that are older. So it's people that have lived there for a long time that have kind of been able to age in place, which has been great. It is an alternative to moving into a nursing home as they're getting older. I've heard another great aspect is that they can provide hospice services right in their ICF, where, you know, you can't provide that same level of service in say, a community residential setting. And another thing that I think is important to understand with ICFs is they have a dual license. They are licensed by both MDH and DHS. They have 24-hour nursing services available. So it's really oftentimes supporting people with a higher level of support needs. As far as the difference between Class A supports people that are ambulatory, or if there's an emergency, they're basically able to get out of the home themselves. Class B are people that are non-ambulatory and would need help in getting out of the home. Did I answer all of your questions?
And I think there was a question about the age.
I suspected it was elderly.
Yeah.
From the ones I've been in. I just wondered, I've only seen the ones in my community. So, yes, I have no further questions. Maybe other committee members do. Thank you.
The last question from Representative Hicks.
Thank you so much, Chair Noor. Thank you for being here, and thank you for bringing this. I do just want to sort of remind everyone, kind of center us back on what our previous testifier said about how far we've come in 50 years. And to just sort of put some concepts on that, when we closed down the state hospitals, ICFDDs were our safety net, full stop. The group home conversations that we have today were a development after. And so these facilities maybe haven't evolved at the same rate and the same structure and in some of the same reforms that some of the other services that we've heard about on this committee have, but they have been home for many of those people that were discharged from the state facility. And they have been home for many of the people that didn't go to a state facility, but when they moved outside of their parents' home, this is where they went. And so they are part of our care structure, and we've talked a lot in this committee about the various parts of our care structure. It is an incredibly complicated, diverse system with different qualifications for different services and different rates and different all of those pieces. But at the end of the day, it is one piece of a puzzle that ensures that we're caring for Minnesotans with disabilities. And ICFDDs specifically are caring for individuals who have a developmental disability and an IQ of less than 70. And so when we are talking about these facilities, those are the humans, those are the lives, and those are the important people that we are discussing, supporting, and maintaining in the home they've always known. So I just sort of wanted to give a little bit of disability history, because it's my weird geek out thing, so that people understand that this was the first step to deinstitutionalization, and we have moved on from there, but we still have folks that are reliant on this first step to be home. So.
Thank you so much, Representative Hicks, for the background and for the final, quick. Representative Zeleznikar.
Thank you, Chair Noor. Do you know if there's openings in the ICF right now, or are they 100% full?
Ms. Grafstrom.
Chair Noor and Representative Zeleznikar, my understanding is there are many openings in the homes.
Your final statements, Chair Freiberg.
Thank you, Chair Noor, Lead New Brindley, members of the committee. I thought Representative Hicks kind of summarized the need for this legislation really eloquently. I'm not sure I can do any better, so I just would say thank you for considering this really important legislation.
Thank you so much, Chair Freiberg. I renew my motion that House File 568 be laid over. This bill will be laid over. So the next bill we have is House File. Is Representative Hanson in the room? So the next bill for today is House File 999. I don't know how you got that number. So please welcome to the committee, introduce your bill. Before that, I would like to move House File 999 be laid over for possible inclusion. To your
Thank you,
bill.
Chair. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members of the committee. Before you today is House File 999, and this is a continuation of the work that was done last session on House 3100. I'm sure you all had lots of emails in your inbox about that, so I just want to link those two together, that this is the continuation of that work. We've heard lots of variations of bills calling on us to do more to better support direct support professionals. Year after year, this conversation comes up at the legislature, and we find ways to do what's needed in that moment for that time until the next crisis hits. This bill seeks to resolve some of that and continue the conversation about the action that's needed. To put it simply, and to ground us in our morals as we have this conversation, if we as a state believe in honoring the dignity and worth of Minnesotans with disabilities, and if we value their ability to live full and meaningful lives, our state-set reimbursement rates must reflect these beliefs. This bill seeks to set reimbursement rates at a level that will pay for the staff supports necessary to take action on this belief as well. This bill proposes changes to the DWRS, the Disability Waiver Rate System. The DWRS is a rate-setting methodology for home and community-based waivered systems for people with disabilities. Since we have many new lawmakers here and DWRS is complex, I want to just quickly explain what the DWRS is. In 2014, DHS established the DWRS to have a uniform rate-setting methodology statewide, as reimbursement rates had varied widely across the state. The rates are now more consistent, and the established rates are based on a uniform process of structuring component values for services that are provided. It also promotes quality of care, participant choice, and recognizes a person's assessed needs for particular components within each service. These services include a wide spectrum of residential, employment, day enrichment, and other support services that are provided by the DSPs, which are direct support professionals, as we use all the acronyms here in the legislature. They assist and empower Minnesotans with disabilities to live full and meaningful lives within their communities. For clarity, and keeping in mind that these DWRS waiver-funded disability services different from our state's personal care assistance or PCA program, which is another but very important program that provides critical services to Minnesotans with disabilities who live independently. The Best Life Alliance brought this legislation forward to make impactful, data-informed changes to the DWRS system in collaboration with stakeholders, including the providers who care deeply about the Minnesotans who rely on their care, and in conjunction with DHS. These changes will move our state forward in addressing the current widespread shortage of critical staff who provide hands-on disability support services. This bill proposes that we use more current economic data to inform updates to specific factors included in the DWRS system. These factors include services that are based on the standard occupational code data, consumer price index data, and data from the competitive workforce factor analysis that was carried out by the Department of Human Services. Additionally, this bill contains language to address the percentage difference in wages between DSP roles and supervisory roles. And lastly, the bill proposes to remove respite services from the DWRS system, allowing providers to work with the counties on a rate that better reflects the cost of providing the services. This committee is well aware that our state is in the midst of an incredibly challenging disability services workforce shortage. We've heard stories like today and others from families and people with disabilities calling on us to create change and to better support those who are among the most vulnerable in our state. While workforce shortages are happening across the state in various industries, shortages in the disability services space mean that many Minnesotans with disabilities are not able to live full lives let alone the lives they choose and want to live. Group homes are closing. Vital support services for people living independently are going unrendered. And employment and day support programs are facing long wait lists as their capacity to serve shrinks. Recent estimates expose that a 30% vacancy in DSP positions are open across the state, with a turnover rate of over 65% for DSPs within the first year of employment. We fear that number will continue to grow as we see more DSPs leave this rewarding work for lower stress and higher paying jobs. We must increase the state set reimbursement rates so staff wages and benefits don't fall behind and below those of our local and well-loved fast food and any other entry-level retail workers, like the opportunities they're due today. These meaningful and important jobs are ones that we must respect and honor by taking action on critical and innovative changes like this bill offers. The investments made in past sessions into the DWRS system were greatly appreciated by staff and people receiving the services. And it's no secret that things would have been much worse had we not extended that support. We made important changes in past sessions that aimed to move our state toward a more independent and community-based service modality. However, the disability workforce shortage has continued to worsen. And it's gotten to the point where the basic promise to offer disability waivered services that actively support people where and how they want to live is very much in jeopardy. This has historically been an effort that's important to nearly everybody in the legislature, staff, members on both sides of the aisle included. And I want to just take a moment to say thank you for your attention to this matter. Thank you, Chair Knorr, for being the expert in all of the areas to make these changes. And thank you for supporting this bill, more importantly, because supporting people with disabilities in Minnesota is the right thing to do. Thanks for hearing their calls for action and helping to get this into action. With that, I have a number of testifiers who are going to tell a little bit more and can assist with some of the technical questions. You also have a number of letters of support in your packets and have been posted online that I would encourage you to look at. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Representative Hanson. So the first testifier on the list is Jill Anderson. Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Chairman Knorr and members of the Human Services Finance Committee. My name is Jill Anderson, and I'm the mother of Colton. My family and I live in East Bethel. I deeply appreciate this opportunity to speak before you regarding the importance of House File 999 to my family. Let me tell you a little bit about Colton, how the lack of access to waiver-funded disability services has affected him, and how you supporting House File 999 with its investments aimed at improving the wages and benefits of direct support professionals can help the situation. Colton is nonverbal. He's very social and loves to be around people. He attended St. Francis area schools, Transition 15, during Colton's for high school. During Colton's time at St. Francis area schools, Colton made an impact on his peers, teachers, and staff. He loved getting picked up daily, going to school, and being part of his community. Even though he's nonverbal, those who interacted with him knew what he was conveying and how much he wanted to be a part of the daily activities. Transition schooling provided Colton with a routine, which is important to young adults like Colton. He would get up every morning, get ready for school, have a schedule of items he did each day. Colton learned many new skills, such as wiping down tables and delivering mail. He also participated in activities like art, physical education, and daily meetings with his peers and staff. The purpose of transition schooling is to facilitate the student's move from school to post-school activities. Transition 15 was preparing Colton for his next phase in life, and we were excited. Normally, families would start thinking about where and what their young adult will move on to during the transition schooling. But due to the pandemic, locations weren't offering tours, and evaluating sites was very hard. Our family was interested in both Rise and Opportunity Partners, but neither of them were offering walk-through tours. When we finally got to walk through Rise, it had many things Colton would enjoy: biking, music, art, social interaction. We immediately got on Rise's list in 2021. When we signed up, we were number 11 on the list, and we were revised. Rise had a number of participants to bring back from COVID-19. We are still number 11 on that wait list, and that is due to lack of staffing. I see Rise is continually doing hiring events, but how can they compete when you get paid $20 an hour to work at Quick Trip and you don't have the challenges of working with people with special needs? We are also on the wait list for Opportunity Partners, and they also have not had a spot for Colton. Colton is 22. He'll be 23 on June 3rd. He has spent almost 2 years living at home with little socialization, which increases his depression, anxiety, reduces his social skills, and overall is hard on him. We try to schedule outings for Colton, but with both of us working full-time and different PCAs in the house, the schedules get even harder. Also, there isn't a lot to motivate him to keep him on a schedule. My husband and I try to get Colton out a few times a week to get the social interaction, but there is no replacing a program where Colton can blossom with his peers. When we do take Colton out, undesirable behaviors occur. He gets overwhelmed, his anxiety increases, and it takes a long time to get him to a point where he is enjoying what we're doing. Another way we get Colton out is to just go for car rides. Colton and I will go out for a morning drive a few times a week just to see the countryside. Colton really doesn't care about the turkeys or deer, I point out, nor does he care about the traffic. What does he care about? He sees buses and points to himself, and then to the bus. Yes, that's Colton telling me he wants to go on the bus. He sees a van like the one that would pick him up to transport him to school and lets me know that's what he wants. In the past, when he's pointing at these buses or vans, he starts to cry. Colton knows the bus brings him somewhere that's a special place, as such a van would, and he misses it. As a parent, it makes me very sad for Colton and for his peers. Our adults with disabilities in Minnesota are being impacted by the whole system crumbling, from not being able to find PCAs to work in our own homes, to having limited staff, no space in group homes or respite locations, to employment and day programming. Wait lists lasting multiple years, and the list goes on. I want my son and his peers to be able to have friendships, enjoy music, activities, and learn new skills, go on outings, and volunteer in the community. I want him to enjoy a day away from his home and his parents. He doesn't get that now. To be able to grow and engage with others. Isn't that what we all want in our lives? We don't want to be sitting at our house 24/7, not engaging with anybody else. Why should our adults with disabilities be any different? Over the past 2 years, we've went through so many challenges with Colton, as I know other families have. Our family welcomes you to come spend a day with us in our home or meet with us for a meal out, so you can see how not being able to attend programming impacts our family. It will take many different solutions to address the current crisis and or availability of disability services staff, but House File 999 before you today is an extremely impactful step the legislature can take to help change Colton's and his peers' lives. I ask you for your support of this legislation.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ms. Anderson, for sharing your son's story and the struggles that we all have to contend with, and to be able to come up with the rightful solution for the challenges we're facing statewide. So the next person I have on the list is Barbara. I didn't want to go with the last name. Are you Barbara?
I am a Barbara.
Come on down. Come on down. Please introduce yourself and proceed with your testimony.
Certainly. My name is Barbara Del Caro Skaya. Did that help you?
Thank you.
And I'm grinning now, but I won't be in about a minute. And I apologize that I might seem a little abrupt to you all. I apologize if I seem a little direct. I'm not really a typical Minnesotan. I say things rather plainly. I was asked to come here today because my son is one of the people that is affected by what is going on in the state of Minnesota And my son's name is Trevor. My son is 29 now. When he was 9.5 years old, he was hanged. Since he was hanged, he has a phobia about having anything around his neck. Makes sense, doesn't it? But guess what happened during COVID? You have to wear a mask at COVID. My son can't tolerate a mask for more than, we worked him up to 2 hours. My son was not allowed to go to his day program for 2.5 years because he couldn't wear a mask. He sat at his place of living. That's merely one effect. The woman who spoke about her son Colton, and I want to thank you, stated a lot of the same issues that I have. So I don't want to repeat all of those, but I want to tell you some factual things that happened because we do not have enough funding. We don't have enough in the waiver funding for persons with disabilities to train staff and pay staff equitably. My son's depression elevated markedly. My son's seizures elevated, and it is on record that he is on another dose of seizure medication, all occurring within the last 2 years with this crisis. My son has been left to sit in his own urine and feces. And this isn't a pretty thing to say to you. I don't feel good saying it. But how do I get you to understand that these things are happening if I don't tell you the reality? My son is in a home sometimes where they've been forced to hire staff that are not appropriate for the job. We all know people like that. We wonder, how did you get hired? But when you're desperate to have a body, you lower your standards. And when you lower your standards, things happen. A, the houses get messy and smell horrible. B, the diet is reduced and the person's whole body system is affected. Many persons with severe disabilities need assistance just to have daily constitutionals, if you get my drift. Yes. If you mess with their diet, they don't get those and they end up getting sick. Okay? My son isn't challenged. He had a lot of skills. He could eat with his own fork if you just gave him a little help jabbing the food. He could do a lot of things. But when you leave them to sit in front of a TV all day long, persons with disabilities lose their skills like that. For any of you who might know a family member or a friend who has a disability, it's essential that persons with disabilities use their skills or they lose it. It's called the window of opportunity. It gets closed and it doesn't get regained, okay? His tooth care, for the first time in his 29 years, my son has tooth decay and he also has horrible plaque. Just imagine what that looks like because they're not getting staff who will take the time to brush his teeth. Because when you're hanged, you lose a lot of physical skills. And you just don't have the fine motor skills to brush your teeth. I really feel that this is a very complex issue. I work in the field with adults with SPMI, severe and persistent mental illness. I understand this crisis. On the one hand, as a professional, I advocate all day for my clients. On the other hand, as a mom, I have a hard time breathing. I have a hard time controlling anxiety because I wonder what's happening at his place of residence right now. What should I be aware of that I'm not? Knowing that it's complex, I know there are some solutions that are not the be-all and end-all, but can help. Elevating that waiver price, charging a little bit more, giving more funds for these services so staff who are appropriate can be assigned to the level of care. My son needs one-on-one. Right now, he's living in a home where I had to sign a waiver that in emergencies, it's okay for the overnight staff to sleep because they just aren't getting good staff. First of all, that should be against the law, but it isn't. Second of all, I want you to ask if there's anybody in your family that you would like to live that way. Nobody's raising their hands. I don't think that an issue has to connect us personally in order for it to be important. I was doing my work long before my son's disability. It just happens to be that this is the life I lead now. I need your help. We need to support increased funding for those waivers so we can hire staff who want the job and feel like they're being recompensed for the hard, difficult, and necessary work they do. I need you to hear us, not with just your hearts, but with the action as you sign off on bills. Thank you for this opportunity to share with you.
Thank you, Ms. Delcara-Skaya, for your testimony and calling us to action, and also for sharing with us the situation with your son. So thank you so much. The next person we have on the list is Stacy Rowe. Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself and proceed.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. For the record, my name is Stacy Rowe. I am the Board of Directors President for our State Provider Association, ARM, and I work for Mainsol Services, a home and community-based services provider. I'm here today in support of House File 999. It sends a message to the incredible employees at Mainsol and around the state that says, we value your work and your contribution to society. And we will show you that by giving your employers service rates that allow them to pay you wages commensurate to the work that you are doing. Most services provided through Minnesota's disability waiver programs are funded through the disability waiver rate system. And we are in desperate need of adjustments to the state set reimbursement rates so we can make progress towards more competitive wages and benefits. I'm going to share some timelines with you to highlight why the current law isn't working. The next update to the disability waiver rate system isn't scheduled to start until November of 2024. That update, based on the current law, would be based on data that was current back in 2021. This means that our rates would be based on data that is 3 to 6 years old, because the adjustments roll out between November of 2024 to October of 25 as people's services renew. So it starts there, but it can go up to the whole year after. And then those rates are in place until October of 2027 for many people. So again, this is using 2021 numbers for rates between 2024 and all the way to 2027. We are asking instead, through House File 999, that the next rate adjustment come in January of 2024, and then every 2 years after, and basing those adjustments on the most recently available data. The most recently available data is still not completely current at its implementation, but it's better than what we have in law now, which always has us multiple years behind the current market data. House File 999 also fully funds the competitive workforce factor for all disability waiver services. The competitive workforce factor is a component of the service rates that reflects a reoccurring DHS analysis showing the gap in wages paid to staff working in waiver-funded disability services compared to the wages paid in other comparable jobs in our community. This proposal in the bill also helps us move closer to being able to pay more competitive wages for the spectrum of disability waiver services that our state offers. The reality of what is happening in our industry is that in order to recruit and retain employees so that we can provide the supports to people, many providers are making the necessary investments in wages and holding their breath, hoping that the legislature will provide the funding before they go out of business. Please don't let that happen. I thank you for your ongoing attention that you are bringing to this crisis, and I know you've heard the statistics, but I want to say them one more time. We have over a 30% vacancy rate for direct support professionals, and 2/3 of the DSPs that leave do so in the first year. This is hard, skilled work, and it takes certain people to do it. People are living in hospitals because families and providers cannot support them in the community. Furthermore, recent data from the Department of Human Services shows that 71 community residential settings licenses closed in Q4 of 2022. Those are people's homes. And we know there are many, many people going without or having reduced staffing for supports in their own home. This labor market is a game changer, and we need timely support to adapt quickly, as well as long-term solutions, so that we have a viable system in the future. Our support system for people with disabilities cannot weather the storm alone. We need elected leaders to act as soon as possible with sustainable investments, and these are investments. We need you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rowe, for your testimony. Appreciate that. Anyone else who wants to testify on this bill in the public? See none. Member discussions. Representative Hicks.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Representative Hanson, for bringing this bill. I really, really appreciate it. I think our last testifier kind of hit the nail on the head. We've talked a lot about a lot of the different services that need funding, and to be clear, they all do. And we need to take a look at all of those care structures as a collective group and find the best solutions. But I also think we need to acknowledge that some that we've heard about, including this particular subset of care, are on the verge of collapse. Providers are borrowing against their reserves. The reserves, because it was raining, they use the rainy day fund. The rainy day fund is dwindling, and we are borrowing from banks. We are seeing organizations that are nonprofits that have depleted foundation funds, that are going to local community banks and asking not only for donations, but also for loans. Loans to make payroll, loans to pay health insurance for their employees, loans to keep the lights on. There is a system in place that, frankly, this body and myself included thought was going to support DWRS moving forward. And then inflation in the world turned upside down. And we need to respond to that situation before we have a complete industry collapse. And so I am so grateful to you, Rep. Hanson, because I know this was a lot of work. I appreciate it so much. And I hope that this committee, when we sit down to look at how all these puzzle pieces come together, remember the testimony of our professional who was just there about how close we are to full collapse.
Thank you so much, Representative Hicks. Representative Quam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And what would the competitive workforce factor be for, say, Rochester?
Representative Hanson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Representative Quam. I don't have an exact number for a specific region off the top of my head, but what I would say is I know Representative Hicks works in this area, and she loves this, so she might actually have that number. But I would also add that everybody across our state is probably wondering what you're wondering. And at the end of the day, my answer will be, it's not enough.
Representative Hicks, if you wanted to respond to that.
So I can't give you the technical competitive workforce factor, but our providers in Rochester did a little unofficial study. It was very cool. So they all sort of picked a different target. So the providers in Rochester all picked a different target. Some picked 17, some picked 18, some picked 20, and they actually included some of the Winona providers as well. They all picked a different target and 50-cent increments between that target as their starting wage. And then they kept data. They kept data on how that affected their applications. They kept data on how that affected their retention. And they kept data on how it affected the quality of applicants. And what they have figured out is that the number, as of before the election, so like October, the number as of October was, I believe, $19 is the number in Rochester that allowed them to hire and keep. However, they just recently told me that with some of the other wages rising, they don't think that that's the same number as it was. And so they actually did their own little unofficial study in 2021, and that's sort of where it landed.
Representative Quam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the point being why I asked specifically Rochester is for the care sector, there's so much competition because of that small clinic that's there and the millions of people that come and visit it annually. And that when this bill I didn't know if it was just we do it for the state. I think that would be somewhat of a fair effort. However, if you don't look at the regional, I think you're going to overlook the issues we've got down in some of the areas. And I was just sort of curious because I'd like to see how they're calculating that, because when you do the type of people that would work in this care function, it's not the whole population. And you look at what other positions would they go to, because you do this because of something inside you wants to make a difference and help. And so if you do get the equation or the process, it'd be nice to share it, because then we can go and look at our neighbors, our communities, and understand how that would work and get feedback. Because if you talk to a sector and they say, we are losing our employees mostly to this entity or that entity, that might help us understand how to tweak the gauge. And I was just curious how many federal waiver requests are needed to allow us to implement this, if it's a general one or if it is like several because it goes against different sectors. And then if we could do it, a waiver and a pilot project, that might give us some more leeway in implementing.
Thank you, Representative Quam. To Representative Hanson, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Representative Quam. I was just by one of our fantastic providers here, because this is never an individual effort. This is always a team effort. Handed a piece of paper that confirmed the base wage around the state is $15.60 an hour, with a competitive workforce factor of 4.7%. And so I would ask us, can you support your family on that? And would you stay in a job with that amount? And that if the answer is no, then we need answers like this bill offers in order to do that. To the second part of your question, I'm going to turn it over to a testifier who has much more experience answering this specifically about federal.
Mr. Goodnow, please introduce yourself the record. And
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Kevin Goodnow. I am here on behalf of the Minnesota Organization for Habilitation and Rehabilitation MORE, part of the Best Life Alliance Coalition. Representative Quam, there's a couple. First of all, you need one waiver, but you have multiple parts in that waiver, of course. But the reality is the concepts that are included in this bill have already been approved by the federal government. So it's not introducing a new subject. These have already been approved. A couple just clarifications with regard to two of your other questions. Understand when you do the Best Life Alliance, the base wage index, that's a component in a formula. And it doesn't necessarily evenly equate to what wages can be paid based on that formula and that reimbursement rate, because of how you do the ratios, because some people will be maybe serving 4 people, 8 people, so that has a factor in the fact that a person you aren't able necessarily to bill out for every 15-minute unit of the day that a person works, so it doesn't completely equate to that. The competitive workforce factor, as it's built into the system, you have your base wage index. The competitive workforce factor is a factor that we put into place to try to bridge the gap between what the DSPs earn and so that's the average of DSPs in residential and day, which is based on the median statewide for those categories, compared to other occupations that have the same requirements, training requirements and educational requirements. So that could be your McDonald's worker, it could be, the person who was working hospitality as well. That differential can vary. When we first implemented the difference, we'd agreed at a set rate of 4.7, but the actual differential was in the double digits. The most recent report still has the difference in I can't remember exactly what it is, 16% difference between the DSP average wage and those of like occupations. So that's the gap that we're having right now. In addition to that, to your regional variance, there is a factor at the very end of the formula that deals with regional variance factor. And that takes into consideration the difference in wages and costs associated with where you're located in the state. So that's actually built into the system already.
Thank you so much, Mr. Goodnow. I will give the author of the bill the final closing remarks. I think Mr. Goodnow mentioned 16.7% to be precise. Thanks to Representative Hicks for the quick information. To your closing remarks.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, everybody, for participating in the conversation today. So as you saw, there's, as we sit up here, we're chatting with each other. This is a huge coalition. The work that's gone into this to make sure federal requirements are met, that the questions are answered right, that I have the tools I need as the vehicle to bring this bill before you is mighty. And the people that this community serves deserve that. They deserve to have a voice here at the legislature, and it's my honor to get to do that. And I hope that we can get this through this year and make sure that we don't have to keep bringing back so many folks into our audience here. But thank you all for being here today, and thank you to the committee members, and thank you most, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much, Representative Hanson, for bringing this bill forward. I renew my motion that House File 99 be laid over. So the bill is laid over. The next and the final bill is House File 240. Representative Reyer, would you like to move House File 240 be laid over for possible inclusion?
Mr. Chair, yes, please.
Please introduce your bill to us and proceed.
Thank you, Chair Neuer and members. House File 240 proposes a creative way to help fill the critical void existing today in our disability caregiving workforce. It raises the hourly cap currently in place for family members who have stepped up to provide this care for their loved ones with disabilities. This legislation would not increase assessed hours of services for Minnesotans with disabilities. It would simply allow family members to be reimbursed for providing more of these assessed hours of care. This would help alleviate the shortage of workers and the economic hardship these families face in their efforts to support their loved ones at home and out of more congregate settings. Specifically, the bill would raise the current 40-hour weekly cap in place for parents of minors and spouses, that's 40 hours per week per household, in the following ways for the Consumer-Directed Community Support Program and the soon-to-come Community First Services and Support Program. One, it would allow each parent in a two-parent household to provide up to 40 hours of caregiving per week. Second, it would allow a single parent or one parent in a household where only one parent can provide care to provide up to 60 hours of caregiving per week. And third, it would allow spouses to provide up to 60 hours of caregiving per week. This bill will provide needed flexibility and better support for family caregivers and will offer better control of who comes in and out of their home as we continue to navigate COVID and other contagious diseases. This bill language was part of a hearing earlier this session in the Senate Human Services Committee that focused on human services workforce solutions, and we're hopeful for the bill's path in the Senate. I would also like to thank my bipartisan second author, Representative Schumacher, as well as the many other co-authors signed on to this bill. I'd now like to turn to my testifier, Sarah Kasner, to share her personal story in support of the bill.
Ms. Kasner, welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Chair Knorr and members of the Human Services Finance Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today.
Ms. Kasner, please pull the mic. Thank you.
Is that better?
Yes.
My name is Sarah Kasner. We are a family of 6, including my husband Dan and 4 boys, AJ, Ben, Caleb, and Dunky, A, B, C, D. We have not 1, but 2 boys that suffer from a rare genetic, progressive, and terminal disease called Duchenne muscular dystrophy. For those not familiar with Duchenne, it exists because kids lack an essential protein called dystrophin that helps muscles get stronger. So every single movement that Caleb, 9, and Dunky, 7, take makes them weaker, as muscle is replaced with fatty tissue. This eventually ends with the lungs and the heart. Life expectancy is generally late teens or early 20s. Our kids cannot do what typical kids their age do. They need help with simple daily tasks that most take for granted. This disease also comes with social issues such as anxiety, autism, ADHD, and depression. which is only exacerbated with daily steroids that they are on. We as their parents want to help them. We want to be their caregivers. We help them because it means more time with them, as we do not know how much time we will get. We will do anything for just one more minute, as we are not guaranteed tomorrow. I am a carrier of Duchenne. Caleb was diagnosed nearly 5 years ago. When he was diagnosed, the neurologist asked if he could see his brother. Just one touch to the calf and 5 seconds of watching him play for us to find out this disease affected not only our then 4-year-old, but also his little brother. As a carrier, I am now followed carefully by a cardiologist, as I am at heightened risk for fibrosis of the heart. As if it wasn't enough that my kids have this disease, it could mean that I also may not always be here to help them. My husband stays at home to be the main care provider, and I work full-time in a demanding job, while of course also helping with the boys. But I'm exhausted all the time. I wake up well before the sun after sleepless nights of taking turns to help the kids with various requests. We tag team to get the kids ready for school while I also get ready for work. I work all day, and then I attempt to manage my schedule so that I can help with the kids after school or bring them to various doctors or therapies. At night, we have a routine. It takes both of us and starts immediately after dinner. And then I pull out the computer and I work. I work until I'm too tired to work anymore and to make up for time that I chose to spend with my kids. But what if things were different? What if this bill passes and I could dial back at my regular job so that I could provide personal assistant services to my children under CDCS? What if it meant that I could live a more desired lifestyle for my kids and for my family? Lifting the 40-hour household cap will make a difference because I have not just one, but 2 little boys with failing bodies that would have their mommy by their side day in and day out if they had their choice. So thank you so much for the opportunity to share our story and your willingness to understand the positive impact this would have on families like mine.
Thank you, Ms. Kastner, for sharing that with us. We appreciate the work that you do, and also for the call to action. I think that has been the theme from everyone who testified here today, so thank you so much. Is there anyone else in the public who wants to testify on this bill? Seeing none, member discussions. I have Representative Hicks. She stepped out. I think this was from the previous bill. I just wanted to ask a few questions. I think we need to check in with the department and see if this change was included in the governor's recommendation. I don't have it in front of me as part of the conversation. Ms. Graham. Please introduce yourself again and proceed.
Mr. Chair, members, Christy Grom with the Department of Human Services. And just to clarify, the question was whether or not this was included in the governor's budget recommendations. Yep. Mr. Chair, yes, this provision was included in the governor's budget recommendations, so we're very pleased to be able to support this bill today. I want to thank Representative Reyer for bringing it forward.
Representative Kwan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Back when things were changed with the PCAs, in rural Minnesota, a lot of entities stopped having PCA assistance available in the rural areas. I know of some families who, basically the one or both parents had to fill in the gap. There was a little bit of pay that came in, compensation for the hours. But it wasn't enough. And we heard one example. It's not uncommon for a teenager that's been in a car accident to all of a sudden not be able to take care of themselves. And I think for the dollar, you could not get a more caring person than the parent. And this bill being able to facilitate that care, I think is a good thing.
Thank you so much. Any further discussion, members? Seeing none, Representative Reyer, your closing remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Before
This-
you
Yep.
go, I think I've got Vice Chair Barner for the question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And actually, not so much as a question as a gratitude. I think to Representative Reyer for bringing this bill forward. And, you know, I will tell you in my own family, we have a cousin who, for many, many years, and he fell into one of the categories we heard earlier, where was diagnosed with a number of disabilities, had the mental acuity of about a 5-year-old. In that day and age, they were told he could either go into a facility or they could take him home. My aunt, being a nurse, decided that there was no way she was letting anyone care for her child except herself. And she brought him home. And I will tell you, we watched as M. Florence very lovingly cared for Stephen. But I will tell you, it didn't come without cost, and it didn't come without great personal hardship, both for the family, for the other children in that family, and of course financially. It was very difficult. And I think we know today, because of a lot of the shortages that we're experiencing in workforces, and the reality is there is no one who understands a child better than a parent or a relative who knows that child inside and out. They know their behaviors. They know when they're sad. They know when they're happy. They know what hurts, how to make it better. They know how to touch and how to care for that individual. So having the ability to extend this, to have more folks be able to care for their loved one and do it in a way that the person that knows that child best can be there for their child, and to do it in a way that they can still care for the rest of their family and still be there financially, emotionally, physically, is a big deal. And so I know from my own family experience that this bill would have made a colossal difference in my family's history. But I know that there are so many places where I am certain that this bill will make a colossal difference for other families, including yours. And thank you for coming to give your testimony today. I know it's difficult to get down here and to sit in front of all of us and share your story. So thank you for doing that today. And thank you, Representative Reyer, for bringing the bill forward.
Thanks. Thank you, Representative Reyer. Please go ahead with the closing remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to thank both Representative Quam and Representative Bonner for your moving comments about the impact this bill will have, and certainly, Ms. Kasner, to you and your family. I hope that we can make this happen for you and for all the families like you. To me, it's a privilege to be here and to carry this bill and to be able to do this work that will help so many people. Thank you all for your support.
Thank you. Representative Reyer renews her motion that House File 240 be laid over, so the bill is laid over. With that, members, we don't have any further items to discuss. We're now adjourned.